So for the viewers or the audience, I wanted to first clarify this forum or this dialogue that we are having, you and me, is purely residential real estate.
Okay.
Residential real estate. I'm not a consumer activist. I'm an industry professional, and I want to give my balanced views here, so that more and more professionals like me realize and come up with their thoughts and opinions. I'm not trying to cloud anybody or bring out any kind of it's not any personal attack against anyone, but this is just an expression of opinion which I strongly felt being in the industry for the last 2 decades. It's very important that we acknowledge these truths that are persistent in this industry. And of course, we are not on a self-praising mission that, wow, Mr. Rao, you're doing a great job. Neither, I mean, you have reached out to me. I'm going to be as critical as I can when when the facts come up,
Sure.
of course, and so can you be.
Sure.
So
Sure.
we're not on a self-appeasement dialogue
Absolutely.
for the audience.
Absolutely.
This is purely for the truth and for the facts that are existing in this industry.
Absolutely. Okay. So to begin with, Tirthankar, can you do 2 things? One is introduce yourself in terms of the work you have done.
Yeah.
Because people may not necessarily have seen our earlier videos.
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Tirthankar Basu, and I am an industry professional. And being in this real estate sector for the last 20 years, I have moved through various roles and various verticals. Roles in the sense I have marketed real estate, I've sold real estate, I have ideated real estate projects. And when I say real estate here, it is across asset classes, right from residential to mall to industrial spaces to even township projects, and even filing, submitting bids for township projects with the government. So I have had number of interactions with the governments, and also urban planning and urban development, because that is also one area where I have been in the consulting scene. So that's been my journey in this industry, and I've always chosen my area of deployment or my area of practice. I have not followed the crowd. Yes, for that I have had to move, through organizations and wherever opportunity came.
Okay.
So, and yes, I'm an active blogger. My platform name is Urbanalytics, which has been there ever since LinkedIn has been popular in this country. I started Urbanalytics as a blog brand in 2006, and yes, I try to gain as much audience as possible who are in the field of urban development, real estate, and infrastructure, of course.
Okay. Okay. So, right off the top of your head, tell me something. You've seen some of my work, right?
Yes.
Now, are we diametrically opposed to each other in any part of what I say? Or are you what are the parts you agree with and what are the parts that you strongly disagree with?
Okay, I'll be very candid here, Mr.
Absolutely,
Rao.
absolutely.
See, the work that you do is an undeniable truth. If there is a problem, somebody is speaking up, he's approaching you because he has no other forum to approach. You are a human being. You are a media professional. You voice their opinions, and you publish the facts. So the only critical thing about it is you using the word Naxal. So I would never term you as an urban Naxal.
Okay.
You are a media person, to be very honest, and you are just bringing up the facts. You're not doing an urban Arnab Goswami on a news channel shouting and screaming at people. Neither, I mean, you're not into drama, to be very honest.
Right.
You are into facts, and you have been very persistent in doing that, because it took a while, or rather, it took months for me to decide approaching you, because I've always tried to understand and be witness and basically witness the whole thing before I actually came up to you, and now we are having this dialogue.
Right.
So this is my very very candid approach, view rather, towards what you're engaged in.
Okay.
And again, I'm repeating, you can't deny the truth. They are real people who are whom you are basically projecting, or whose voice you are bringing up.
Right.
You can't deny that.
Right. Have I been unfair at any point of time? And I want you to be brutal about this. Has anything that I have said been something that where you could say, hey, Krish, you're not listening enough to the other side, and there is another side of the story, and you're suppressing that part of it. Is there anything like that?
It's not that an imbalance, but in a country like ours, where there's so much of idol worship, people who are heading businesses are worshipped. I mean, they are looked upon as, blindly as people of this country look up at godmen. I don't want to name, there are too many of them. So why should that be, first of all? Second is that technical issues like you are, for example, you raise an issue, or you basically bring forth some facts regarding some project. Of course, they are true, and that's why you are able to come up with those things. So I personally would be a little apprehensive about taking big names, because I'm coming to the fact that we are living in a country where there is no clear freedom of speech. But yes, of course, it's very courageous, I must say, on your part to come up with real names and real facts. Let me give you one instance here. If somebody is living in an apartment complex of a certain builder, his money is already locked in. He's living peacefully there. Now, if there is someone in that apartment complex who raises an issue, and that issue is true, okay, there is flooding or there's a civil issue, but he takes it to such a level that the valuation of all the apartments in the building falls.
Correct.
See, the building is providing shelter.
Correct.
Then it takes a different direction. And this is what, I always tell people who are living in my apartment complex. I said, raise the issue, raise the voice, go to the local municipal office, but please don't blow it out of proportions that your asset value goes down. This building is providing you with shelter. And of course, it has taken a certain amount of technology to make that building, to build it up. I mean, we are not living in the Stone Age. You have to build with brick and mortar and concrete and RCC slabs and those things. So everything, cannot be diamond precision. But yes, we should not blow things out of proportion. At the same time, everybody should be courageous and truthful enough to come out with the facts. It's very important to hold people accountable. That is and that is where the gaps are. That is where the gaps are in this country. People are just too self-centered, and that's what brings us to this dialogue that
Right.
the whole industry has been run by professionals, right? From the developer side, the bankers, the consultants, and of course, the people who are selling real estate. And again, I'm saying that we are talking about residential real estate here.
Can I make a broad generalization? I'll hazard a generalization here.
Yeah.
There was a time when it was said that film industry is not really an industry. It is not bankable. It is not corporatized. It's just based on a bunch of guys who take risks, and there's one guy who's a producer and he does some jugaad, gets some money, and that sort of thing. They're not really an industry. And
True.
This used to be a criticism as late as 1990s or even 2000, more or less.
Yes.
Okay, up to 1990s for sure, I used to hear this criticism. Afterwards, that criticism, we have come to a point where we can no longer say that. It is not something you can say now. So you can say that film industry is corporatized, is standardized in its practices. It's not just a bunch of people doing random things and without risk assessment and
exactly. Let me put it this way: all the people I have known, all my friends in the movie and the film industry, everybody is on payroll now.
Absolutely.
They're not freelancers anymore.
Nobody is a freelancer anymore.
Yes.
And they're professionally managed. If you see an actor, there is a whole ecosystem standing behind him.
Yes.
There's a PR guy. There are a bunch of advisors. From his hair to his looks to his to food he eats, the clothes he wears, everything. There is no randomness about it.
Yes.
If an actor says something, it has already been thought through by several professionals. It has been filtered. So even if it looks like somebody is blowing off steam on Twitter, it's probably been filtered.
Yes, of course. So, in a nutshell, yes, it has got professionalized, and I always compare the residential real estate to consumer durables, especially automotive.
Wait, I want to take this towards a slightly acute angle.
Yeah.
Before we go there, here's what I was thinking. Something similar, there's been a similar transformation in the real estate industry also, of course. What I'm trying to say is, what I'm leading up to is, now it is no longer individual builder based, it is corporatized. There is a whole different way of doing things. Very similar to how Bollywood has transformed. Would I be right in saying this?
To a great extent, but with gaps.
With gaps. Okay. So I need those gaps to be pinpointed. But here's what I'm saying. So you also have a chamber of commerce, CREDI, NAREDCO, chambers of commerce. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you form a chamber of commerce, it is the sign of maturation of an industry. An industry has become self-aware, has understood that it has to perform in a way that it can hold dialogues with government and with public. Would I be right in saying this?
Well, that's the intent. We can talk about the benefits of and the role of CREDI and NAREDCO again in a different episode.
Sure.
Because there are a lot of facts underlying. Yeah, it's for another episode.
There is a bridge that needs to be, when you talk about dispute resolution, not having a suitable forum for dispute resolution. Why is it that there is no obvious forum for dispute resolution within each company? Because it's a complicated structure. CRM is ideally a situation where there should be dispute resolution.
No. I'm sorry to say, CRM in residential real estate in India, and I can speak very boldly on this, is nothing but a money recovery platform.
So there is no dispute resolution anywhere.
No, what is a dispute resolution? You have paid your token amount or your booking amount. Now you need to pay the rest of the money.
They pretend it, as you know. They pretend it because they have these things. We are opening your case and we are closing your case. Have you seen that?
Yes. All that is there. It's all very. Again, I want to highlight the way currently real estate is marketed in India, residential real estate, the approach is we are doing you a favor. You have come to us, we are doing a favor to you. So it's your duty to book, it's your duty to honor the payment commitments, it's your duty to accept what we are giving because, array, this is Builder X ka project. How can you say that Builder X will not deliver on time? How can you say that you're getting a technically deficient unit like dam? How can you say this is not right or this is wrong? There are several other people like you. Are they fools? So that is the very approach that is across the country. I mean, how dare you question the Godman? You have to pay the subscription. How dare you question? How dare you question that the Godman assaulted X and Y? So, and the whole public is yet to be enlightened, has to get enlightened of the fact that the facts are, the truth is not what it is. So that is the anomaly in the industry that is there. And I want to highlight the fact here is that everybody who's part of this industry, all the real estate professionals, whether they're bankers, whether they're working with developers, whether they're into marketing, whether they're civil engineers, whether they are selling into sales, or whether they are processing home loans, everybody has been a real estate consumer, residential real estate consumer, and I can guarantee the fact that each one of them has faced these anomalies, but they don't come up and speak for various reasons. One is people don't want to come out of their comfort zone. Second is, I know I'm stretching this too long, but I'm trying to come to the point here, is that I'm sure your audience has people from this sector, from this industry, and this is a call out to everybody to have this realization that all of them have purchased real estate and there have been anomalies. And the reason they don't come up is, one is they're not enlightened enough. Second is that they're not entitled to speak. Third is perhaps they are technically challenged to detect those anomalies. They know overall, but they can't. And fourth is, of course, this notion that we have is, why question the system? Why question the God-man? Why question a time-tested, ritual or the way things have happened? So, and let me be very specific. The anomalies here are, first of all, timely delivery. Second is hypes in marketing, the valuations, overvaluation. And third, of course, is deficiency in quality. So I have seen civil engineers purchasing real estate, living in damp apartments, in poorly designed spaces, and still not having the guts to come out and speak and question. And by the time these people realize, it's too late. So there is a phenomenon. If you get cheated, there is a large portion of the public who don't really want to come out and speak, and because the ego comes in the front.
They're ashamed of having these.
Yes. Why is it that today you are a victim and you're part of a system? You're the cogs of a system, which is again doing the same thing, and it's happening again and again. I mean, if you look at the hype which is created when a real estate project is marketed, I mean, 80% sold, in spite of failing economy, bookings are happening. That's all right. The pep talk is good, but when you blow it out of proportions, And when you talk about hype, you talk about a hype when the product is robust. You talk about an Apple iPhone 14 launch because you know the product is robust. Everybody swears by an iPhone today because they know that the phone is going to last for the next 5 years, and your other models will not. That's when you can harp. Of course, it's an overpriced piece of equipment, which is essential. But when you talk about residential real estate by an ex-builder, I mean, how can you talk, out of proportion when you know that in most of the cases the deliveries are deficient in quality and time. Even I believe, even if one customer out of 1,000 in an apartment project of 1,000 is getting a delayed possession and without getting compensation, the project has a defect. Because the matter has not been addressed by way of compensating him. Because compensation is a two-way thing. If he delays in the payment, he starts getting threatening calls. So let me not get down to that detail, but this dialogue that we're having is a call out to all the real estate professionals, the people who are understanding that and realizing that yes, they have been consumers too, and so have I been. I have also taken a home loan. I have also purchased apartments which have deficient in quality. I mean, through my career, of course, it took me time to realize I have also worked with a nationalized bank selling mortgages. And yes, the maximum I could do in that role is making my customers take an informed decision. Honestly speaking, I don't have a single customer of mine, and I'm not harping here, who comes back to me and said, Mr. Basu, I'm not happy with the deal you gave me. Because I told them that you're purchasing this piece of asset, please work on your finances well, and please read the fine print. You're taking a home loan for 30 years. Please take the caveats into consideration. I know you desperately need a home loan. And of course, I need to close it also, but take an informed decision. That's the maximum I could do. So,
one thing is, see, how you present the transaction. So you are encouraging your customers, in any case, the people who depended on you personally, to take a very considered, informed decision. You're not pushing them, you're not rushing them, you're not threatening to forfeit and withhold and so on. However,
that is what I want to highlight here is that why do you have to sell residential real estate like a timeshare holiday plan? Why do you have to be so aggressive in selling? Why do you have to make calls? Why do you have to make repeated calls? Why do you have to call the whole family and create that drama and the aura? When it is an essential item, it is a consumer durable. I always stand by the fact that residential real estate is a consumer durable asset. It's not an investment. You are buying it to live in it.
It is not an investment in the sense that it is unsound to think of it as the place where your money will grow. Am I correct?
It is an automobile an investment? It is not.
It's a depreciation. It will be depreciation.
Even residential real estate is a depreciable asset. People who have made money in residential real estate, they can show me papers and spreadsheets, but they did it during the speculation era of pre-2008. A residential real estate consciously is a consumer durable which you have to use, and if you don't use, it will deteriorate. If you don't maintain, it will deteriorate. It entails a payment commitment by way of painting it, by way of property taxes, by way of building maintenance, common area charges. And if you don't live in that, you're going to die, and then somebody is going to take charge of that. You have to give it away in inheritance. So I am addressing the audience who are purchasing real estate as for utility purpose. I'm not addressing the audience who have excess funds and they just need to park their money.
Mm.
I mean, that's a different diaspora altogether.
Correct. But that
Talking
is
about the real customers here. The
those
real consumers.
customers, the ones who need to park the money, have a very large influence on the market, right?
Yes, they do. But
they're influencing the price.
But they don't realize that where they're putting the money in. And I have seen builders themselves purchasing real estate units, knowing the fact that it's overvalued, knowing the fact that the payments are not fair, knowing the caveats, knowing the fact that it's not going to be delivered on time. There is no mechanism to deliver real estate assets on time, residential real estate. Because what happens is, even if one unit is given handover, the builder can claim XYZ has got handover. You're going to get it next week, next month, whatever. So the claim, that claim kind of defends. There is no way to document things. There's no third party. There's no third party authority to basically guarantee or to stand witness to that fact.
Could there be a third party? So just thinking aloud. See, RERA doesn't want to do the job.
Municipal corporation is a third party. The person, the entity which is collecting property tax.
Could a private party simply be a third party? I mean, a private party, as in a private enterprise, does nothing more than be a record keeping agency to when what project was promised, committed, the extension date, RERA extension date, delivery, final delivery, actual possession of first flat after OC, actually pre-OC possession of the thing.
Yes, it is possible.
What's the word? Fit out possession. Pre-OC, this is the date on which they started giving fit out possession.
Yes, it is possible.
Post-OC, this is the date on which they gave it, and that is it. Do you think that would add value?
Yes, of course. It is possible. This
is the last day. Last possession was on such and such date. Afterwards, the builder held on to inventory of, let us say, 200 flats or 20 flats or whatever in this project, and those were eventually sold. That need not be. And meanwhile, society was handed over to cooperative society. I mean,
yes, the answer to your question is yes, it is possible. Any independent entity or a service provider, independent, who's appointed by the customer, again, independently appointed.
It doesn't need to be appointed by a customer, right?
Of course, it is possible that that kind of say we take we hire an Uber and we make a trip. Isn't that data independent enough and robust enough to prove that yes, you took a ride to the airport at such and such time and you were dropped at such and such area? Can anybody question that fact?
Absolutely.
That is live proof. So it is possible to have an entity. I'm not saying an audit as an auditor, but as an entity whose data. There are apps like No Broker nowadays. I know I'm taking a brand name, but yes, of course, they've grown pretty well now, and they are used by apartment associations and apartment complexes to record entry and exit and many other things, and we can vouch by it because it is a system, it is a timestamp, it is a location stamp. So there are systems that can come into action. But again, let's if we go back to our agenda. Of course, we need to go back to the main topic, which is that everybody in this industry needs to acknowledge the gaps that are there and come up. I look forward for you to have more people who have this dialogue with you. So that's why I said you're not an urban Naxal. You are the media, the voice of the people, uh, in residential real estate in a broader sense.
Could you, I'm going to put one statement in front of you. Just react to that statement. I'm saying here that, you brought up this thing about how the iPhone is a very, I mean, you can hype about it because it is robust. It is a product where it doesn't matter whether you buy piece A or piece X in a showroom. It will all be the same. You can be damn sure about it. And if there is an anomaly, if one has a camera defect or anything such thing, it will be addressed, and the addressing will be done in a very institutionalized manner.
Yeah.
So what you have here is something which can be commoditized. It is commoditized. It's commoditized in the sense that A is the same as B is the same as X and Y and Z. Okay, it doesn't matter what color it is. Other than the color, everything will be the same. No one can ever say, white color ones are good, but the gray ones are really not very good. You can't say such things, right? On the other hand, you have projects. Okay, now when you have these housing projects, of course, intrinsically, every flat has some difference because one will be facing east and other will be facing north, and that means the wind direction is different, ambient noises are different, and so on and so forth, and we all understand that.
Yeah.
But other than those differences, nobody should be able to say that a 800 square feet flat in a particular builder's XYZ project is any different from another 800 square feet flat of a similar configuration, the shade or the same configuration or the same number series, should not be any different. They should be exactly the same. Not, this one has leakages and this one has issues and that one doesn't have issues, right?
Yeah.
So right now, I want a reaction from you on this. Right now, what seems to be happening is everybody acknowledges, the building industry acknowledges that there are huge differences, but they want to treat each and every flat as if it is a commodity. And so you can buy 1501 or 1701 or 2001, and they'll say, okay, in fact, floor rise is the only difference. Whereas in actual fact, you will find 1501 has poor build quality and 1801 and 2001 will have terrible build quality. And so what you have presented here is a defective transaction. You have presented a transaction which is intrinsically defective to the flat buyer, and the flat buyer is told, you have to take this transaction. The option is, there is no other transaction for this item. You take this or leave it. Take it or leave it. Wouldn't you say that is the primary issue with real estate? What do you?
That is just one of the many issues.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. I could have, at the beginning of my career, started off very well with selling residential real estate, but I kind of shied away from it. I never put my foot forward and, get that opportunity. But there came a phase where I decided that, yes, I should take up an assignment in selling real estate, residential real estate. And the first question that would come from many prospective customers is that, what are you suggesting me? So I would say that since the whole condominium of, say, 300 units was in my control, what to allot where, to whom, I would tell every customer that please understand every apartment is unique. Even if it is the same, facing the same direction, every apartment is unique because either your floor is changing or your directions are changing. Whether you're looking inwards or whether you're looking outwards, it's up to you to make that informed and conscious decision before you sign the papers or sign the booking form. Now, what happens is that the way real estate is actually marketed in this country is that there is a deficit that is created. The moment you go and you ask what is available, instead of you being given the choice of pointing out, this is what I want. You are told that, oh, the top floors are all sold and only one floor is remaining, and that has a premium to it. Floor rise charge is there, and this southeast facing is good, and that facing is not good. So that differentiation is created, and that what is unethical about how residential real estate has been marketed in this country is that you create a scarcity. You're trained to sense the need of the customer, and you create this scarcity. So that is where it goes wrong. And second, of course, as you rightly put it, every contract is unique. That is where also things are wrong, because if your phone or an automobile is defective, it ought to be replaced. And it is replaced. Your washing machine is replaced. An apartment also needs to be replaced if it is defective from any angle, technical, not aesthetics, because all those things, vastu and which facing and sun angles and wind paths, the customer has made a conscious choice.
He should be given an opportunity to make that conscious choice.
His unit should be swapped. That never happened. And also, most important, if he wants to exit at any point of time due to financial constraints, he should be not only given his money back, but he should also be compensated for the financial loss he has made. I'm not saying that people will start putting money in real estate bookings as a financial instrument because he's getting an X% amount of return here.
Right.
But given the gravity of a situation, if a customer wants to withdraw or back up, there should be no questions asked, cancellation and refund. Impromptu.
Yes.
That is what is missing. So what happens?
So a reasonable exit path for an individual flat buyer who at any reason.
Yes. So that is what is missing. And here what happens is, the moment one wants to do that, there is so much of reluctance. He has to face so much of hardships. Don't you think it means that the product that the developer is selling is not strong enough?
Yes, there is a lack of confidence of the builder in his own product.
Exactly.
Otherwise, why would he be reluctant about taking it back? And that too, well, it has not been physically delivered.
And I always stand by the fact that a developer knows his product the best. You can rectify the defects, the quality defects that are there in a unit. Nobody but the developer can rectify it at its best, because a customer or a buyer is never capable, first of all, technically to get those things done. He doesn't have the economics to get it done, because if you get a plumber, electrician or a civil guy to do rectifications, the costs don't justify it, because and also he doesn't even have the drawings.
He doesn't have the drawings, correct?
No. So if you're purchasing an iPhone or an automobile, you don't get the service manual with it. And you should not get the service manual. It's the work of the provider or the person who is manufacturing.
Yeah, he should have an authorized workshop.
So these are the big gaps that are there, and the people who are part of this industry don't acknowledge these things. They don't come up with this fact. They don't question the practices that are happening. You can talk in great length about which builder started which company in the 60s, and now it is sponsoring all these award shows and all these things. But nobody is digging into these facts and coming up and speaking. Educated class people who have been in this industry for so long, people who have earned from this industry, from the customers. Why is it that? Don't you think that it's an ethical cause that people should voice these concerns, because it's for the betterment of everybody,
right?
And even for the generations to come. When the government, the main problem is in India, the government doesn't take up housing as a public initiative, in spite of the fact that every state in this country has a housing board, and housing boards have created and executed, whether
Housing
independently or
projects.
through
Right.
housing projects, whether through PWD or not, but there have been a lot of gaps in that.
I
They have been,
Actually, what seems to have happened, there has been because I have grown up in housing board houses.
yeah,
Okay, and I have also seen people living in housing board houses in Antapil, government servants, very highly placed government servants, but the houses are, you can see that they were made by housing board. Now, there was a time when India was this socialistic place, and we were in our history.
yeah, we call
In
it
the
the Nehruvian era.
Nehruvian era, exactly. So 60s and 70s, and even lasting as late as I would say 80s, early 80s. In the Nehruvian era, the Gujarat Housing Board, Maharashtra Housing Board, they used to make houses, and they used to make houses for even higher income groups. So there would be, the HIG colonies and the LIG colonies and MIG colonies and all that. So they used to do this, and builders came in as a kind of, uh, how would I put it? They were not
They
mainstream.
were contractors. Yes, the builders those days were contractors. I've explained this in that paper which I wrote.
Right, and there was a very strong cooperative movement, and that is why how cooperative housing societies came to exist. And you used to have one guy being the promoter. You got the LIC colony and IC colony and all these places. LIC colony would be a shining example. They basically they procured a large plot of land from the government. The promoter of that group would approach the government and get permissions, and then get a contractor, and so on and so forth. And somehow out of that contractor space, builders grew into what we know today as builders, where they are still referred to as promoters, but they are not just promoters. They have gone beyond promoters. They are something else. I mean, the word promoter kind of hides the true nature of what they do.
Yeah, that is true. And I must put in here is that
so there is a scope for what I'm just coming back to what you said. There is a scope for, let us say, a greater degree of intervention, or not intervention, but market participation by public sector. Maybe 20%, maybe 30% of the housing, if it were made by Maharashtra Housing Board, or MADA, or MMRDA, or all of them.
It is possible.
It would
you
provide
see those initiatives bearing fruit in Delhi. You have Delhi Development Authority. Notwithstanding the quality issues which I've seen through the 80s and early 90s, it's still a success because it provided housing to the masses, and it democratized housing to a great extent. You see large colonies like Southern Enclave, which are again success stories. You see Salt Lake City in Calcutta, master planned by a Yugoslavian master planner. It is a success story. It has been planned scientifically and executed, and notwithstanding the corruption that went into allotments of plots, still overall, see, you cannot have a corruption-free world. I keep researching housing scenarios in Singapore, in New Zealand, even in areas like in parts of US. Nothing is corruption-free, but these quality gaps that we are debating don't exist in those developed countries. These quality gaps and untimely delivery, delays in delivery, destruction of mortgage. I term it a destruction of mortgage because in a scenario where a customer is continuing to pay EMIs for an apartment which doesn't even exist or can't even brought back to shape,
or is unlikely to ever come to exist.
Unlikely to ever come to exist. It's litigated, and there's no mechanism to bail him out of the situation. So those things, I would rather term them as phantom mortgages. So those scenarios are unheard of in developed countries, and that is what I reach out to everybody who's in this industry to come up and speak if not point fingers uh, at names, at least sensitize everybody who's concerned uh, to acknowledge these facts and bring a change, not a disruption, but a change.
Okay. Okay, just an idea here. Do you think it would make sense for someone like you, um, whom I could broadly say is an industry professional with a conscience, or an industry professional with an independent perception and a conscience, something like that? Okay. Don't know if you would. And there must be quite a few. I'm not saying that you would ideally be only the one, but you are one who is speaking up. But I'm sure there will be people in there who also have a conscience, and their conscience is maybe numbed by the realities of just corporate life.
So as I said, people don't want to come out of their comfort zone.
Apne pair pe kuladi kaun marega, sort of.
No, it's not kuladi. It's just that they would rather do things for their own personal brand and their own personal gains than come up and voice opinions that will, that for the betterment of the people who are aggrieved.
So suppose you were to address these concerns in a kind of I don't know what's the right word, a research paper or something like that, or a recommendations, white paper, to the chambers of commerce of the building industry. Is there a mechanism by which it could be even taken seriously?
No, the answer is no, because there are multiple layers to it. First of all, I would be poised with questions like, what is your standing in the industry? Are you a builder, or are you a top-notch business leader? So those questions will come, and then they'll dig into my qualifications.
And delegitimize what you say based on
exactly. Yeah, they'll say, they'll bring up many more facts. Second is that they would rather shy away from these things, these facts, because it will bring a change in the system. It will make more and more people question. So it will actually expose a number of anomalies in the, and the first thing to get exposed is this system of phantom mortgages in the industry. The whole banking, the housing loan sector will get shaken up, because then people will start questioning that how can you make me sign on a document where the mortgage is not technically existing, physically existing.
Correct.
So that's the convenience path most responses would be. So
would you be able to get through to the banking industry? Okay, you can't get through to the building industry, maybe. Would you be able to get through to the banking industry, who are presumably more, shall we say, intellectual, have some regulation?
Not at all. We know that we have seen the history of banking in our country. In the last 5 years, we have seen the better part of what the banking industry is exposed to, and the systems of it. Let's not take names of the successes and failures, but it's all about people's money that matter. And I don't think, in spite of banking regulators and RBI and SEBI and everybody concerned, I don't think it is an initiative only the parliament can take up if they drive a policy.
They legislate. So you'll have to legislate it onto these guys.
Yeah, I'm not saying the ruling party. It's everybody concerned. They have to take up. They have to consciously realize that there has to be a revolution in residential real estate in this country, the way it is handled and delivered. Then only it is possible. So there has to be a paradigm change, and it is such a it is humongous. The effort such so humongous it is that it scares people.
It defeats people.
People are unable to ideate the whole picture. So because everybody is in their comfort zones. I mean, if there are people who have inherited properties, they would not care. There have been people who have bought properties which never gave them trouble. They would not care. So nobody wants to come out of their comfort zones.
Okay.
But
now, at the beginning of our entire conversation, one thing that you said, and I think you also gave the same advice, is flat buyers must not hurt their own property valuation by speaking up too loudly, too shrilly about their the quality issues, etc., because they hurt their own valuation. In the end, it is about the value of their flat and the value of everybody else's flat in that project.
Yeah.
Okay, so point taken. But here's the thing. Either, I mean, I'm looking at it like this. Either a dispute resolution mechanism has to be created within each one of those projects. It could be project-wide. Now, to some extent, for example, you got, okay, I don't want to name names, but there is this thing called something City Management Association. Okay, well, one of the builders has a very large township project, ongoing township project, keeps growing, never seems to end. And he has this Township Management Association, so-and-so City Management Association.
Yeah.
Okay. Which of late, I think they've corporatized and it's no longer an association, it is now a company, I think. But be that as it may, when it was an association, it could possibly have been a dispute resolution mechanism where people who have, or if not dispute redressal, let's say complaint redressal, where you say, oh my gosh, my house is leaking, oh my gosh, the paint is flaking off, it's a brand new house, but the place is dripping, and so on and so forth. And that complaint gets redressed, but not just in a temporary way. That has to be redressed in a structural way. You have to address the problem. You don't just paint over it. At the very least, that kind of an redressal mechanism should exist, which then has an appeal mechanism within that. Like, okay, you're not happy with the redressal mechanism's answer to your query or the way they redressed your problem. Fine. Now you appeal to one layer above that. So you have some kind of a mechanism. If problems are contained within the mechanism, then they are less likely to spill out into the public domain onto channels like mine. Provided it has adequate bandwidth to address people realistically. Do you agree?
I agree, and yes, there can be a mechanism where the competent authority, which is collecting the property tax every year, that is involved, and that is the enforcing agency because it is a local authority. It is not some pan-India authority or a state-level authority. A local authority knows the problem the closest. And it also holds a certain fund which withholds the certain funds of the developer,
right,
for compensating these kind of for a certain amount of years, for compensating such scenarios in an escrow, of course. So there has to be transparency in this mechanism, and yes, of course, it is possible. You can't get an automobile totally defect free. If there are issues, it can be addressed, and they are addressed. An engine change is done,
exactly.
Body work is done,
or an total replacement if it comes to it. Actually,
everything is repairable and addressable.
Exactly. So if it is addressed, so you don't have that many. For example, I don't get that many calls from owners of cars saying, "Krish, I have a shitty car." I would, if that is how the industry works. There have been a few calls.
happened when you had certain automobiles which were launched in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I should name it, of course. Tata Indica was one big, ambitious mission. Tata Nano was there. And even I must mention Mahindra vehicles also receive a lot of flack. But yes, they are addressed. And people need to understand that a real estate unit is a consumer durable that needs maintenance every day. Paints can get flaked anytime. The plumbing leakages can happen. Electrical shortages can happen. So instead of taking these things for granted, they should be aware that yes, these things happen, and you need to address them. I mean, everything is not intentional. And yes, somebody has to own up to that cause. Once it's handed over, it is the owners of the occupant to maintain it. If he has been negligent, then he can't blame the builders.
Correct.
And I'm not taking sides here, but I've seen in scenarios where the entire complex has been handed over and the association has not maintained it. And I'm talking about scenarios where they have been negligent because they don't pay the maintenance.
Absolutely.
Some people have got muscle power. They will show their approaches and they will not pay. So you can't blame the developer in that case.
Absolutely.
But the glaring truth here is the issue of delayed handover, failure in handover. These are the large issues.
Outright project failure and phantom mortgage.
And of course the big issue of hyped marketing, which I'm trying to highlight here, is that why do you have to hype a project to market it? If you believe in your product, you don't have to hype and do these big ticket, big high drama, high voltage events.
Right. And brochures which make it look like it is paradise on earth.
Yes, of course. That is there. I mean, brochures and 3D renderings and walkthroughs and the way real estate is marketed like timeshare holidays. So,
actually, there is one thing, there are few aspects to this transaction which are conspicuously missing, in my opinion. See, when you sign an application form, when you get a flat buyer to swipe a token on something, what you give him in his hand in exchange to go home with is a bunch of brochures. What you should be giving him in his hand actually is a prospectus.
Yeah, list of deliverables.
It should be a prospectus. It should be a prospectus, not something which says, has disclaimers like all the images here are representational and all that blah blah. You should have a prospectus which says this is a project, these are the risk factors, these are the so this is an objective assessment of this whole thing, and the risk factors are coming from these litigations and so on and so forth. The litigation nature of this litigation is such and such and such and such, and this is the upside and this is the downside and this is the possibility. A prospectus which you can actually study and which you can scale on a you can say okay, this is
an informed decision.
So instead of something that's hyping you, you have a prospectus which then where you say, oh, I'm accepting this much risk, I'm accepting 40% risk, fine, but this guy is giving it to me this much cheaper. All right, I'll accept this risk. I'll accept in exchange for this reward, this potential reward. And exit path. So then there's an exit path. Okay, I may exit at a lower price. I will suffer this much loss, but at this point I can exit. You now have something very clearly laid out where it's not going to be disaster.
That's true.
So if you had a prospectus, then they would be respecting you as a customer, an under construction customer. The very fact that they give you a bunch of brochures and make you swipe a token shows that they just don't respect your intellect at all. They are basically treating you like dirt.
Yeah, and I said even there are builders who get into the consumer mode and purchase themselves, and they don't question it because it doesn't matter to them, because they're just parking their money there.
Right.
They're not real customers.
Right. So it doesn't matter to them.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
It matters when somebody puts their hard-earned money and he's living in a rented accommodation in spite of the fact that he has put in all his money. That's where it matters.
Right. So, this brings us to another aspect of the. You should have, so you got investors who are parking their money. Why should they be following the same pathway to parking their money as a real flat buyer? Let him take equity in the company. He wants to park.
That mechanism is missing. So these are kind of quasi-equities. When a project is pre-sold, it is quasi-equity. That's why a project is pre-sold, and I strongly feel that this is one of the reasons why there's so much of speculation. And you know what happened in speculation, even in the stock market, the valuations go up without any kind of check.
Right.
And who suffers?
Right.
Because housing is a necessity in this country, and you're playing with that consumer durable, which is a highly necessary item of utility. Everybody needs shelter. So this is what it is.
Yeah. That's good. That's true. So anything you want to sort of you want to wrap up with something?
Yes, of course. I mean, this episode goes out to all the real estate professionals who have conscience, enough conscience in them to come up and speak on this forum and discuss how the system can be addressed and throw some more light, because I have spoken very independently here. I mean,
right.
Everybody's opinion is welcome, but very objectively, if people can come up with their opinions,
right,
and how it can be addressed, instead of doing the blame game that the government never took charge or there were fallouts. We are a developing nation, and land is a very controversial subject. Thanks to our legal systems, a developer takes a lot of risk in starting a project. He puts his entire personal equity into stake. So broadly, I will say that, and a change is required, but not a disruption.
Yeah. Now, if we are to head off a disruption could happen if the market completely breaks. For example, what you called phantom mortgages completely suddenly overwhelm the system. And then the system responds with, maybe banking industry responds with, hey, listen, you know what, we are withdrawing from the entire under construction sector. Too many phantom mortgages. It spooks the
That
system.
is what the legislature can play a role in driving that initiative.
To withdraw from it or to moderate?
Yes, of course. I mean, the moment you render under construction, housing loan disbursements totally off the practice, off limit, that's when the reforms will start happening. That's when builders will start getting consumer loans at more fairer rates, and they'll be able to build, because ultimately construction takes time, and there is a significant amount of capital that needs to be pumped in to come up with a project. But then once that comes into action, that's when the reforms will start happening.
Okay. How about this? I'm just reacting to what you said just now. Suppose you divide. I find it incomprehensible that you will get a housing loan for a flat which exists and a housing loan for an under construction property in some well-known township project at the same rate, right? Not even almost the same rate, the same rate. Am I correct? The banking industry
yes.
does not discount at all for the thing that one is an actual existing flat which is your security versus another is an under construction property where even a hole in the ground has not been done. The banking industry is not discounting for the second thing at all. It should say, listen, if you're going to take a loan on this where there is no underlying asset, boss, there are way too many risks. I'm not giving it to you at 9.5% or 9.25 or whatever. I'm going to give it to you at 15% because that is what covers my risk.
There is a propensity towards that. In fact, when you are taking loan on an under construction property, a lot of your assets, your net worth is screened, and you do have to pledge security. So that is the added rider that the consumer has to bear,
which makes him endangered rather than the builder.
Yes, of course, and in a nutshell, you are basically financing the project.
Yeah.
By you're not only financing the project, you're paying interest on that also, and you're not getting any returns on that. But then they're trying to show you that, oh, you got booking at a lower rate, but all that is just, I would say, in simple hand words, common man word, it's just drama.
It's just drama. It's just ice. So there would be at least three layers, one can say. One is an actual asset that exists, as in a ready possession or resale flat. It exists.
Yeah.
So then you got a beautiful secured loan. That is one, where the rate of interest would be lowest, should be lowest for a housing loan. The second would be where, for example, possession has been given, but OC is pending. The physical asset exists, OC is pending. There is a small possibility that they may not get OC because of something that the builder failed to do or he did. But on the whole, the physical asset exists, and at worst, you still have a property which is where there is an actual physical asset, but without the OC. That is a layer 2, and a layer 3 would be no asset exists, maybe a bunch of concrete girders, but that's not a house.
Yeah.
So at least 3 layers for the banking industry could be would be a kind of this thing. Does it sound realistic, or would you like to put more layers, or do you think, what do you say?
No, broadly, these are the 3 layers, and the industry has to address it because we live in a federal environment, a federal governance. Every state has different areas of governance and methods of governance. So, but broadly on a national level, yes, this is how it should be addressed. And the mortgage has to be secured and warranted by the local authority, the authority that is collecting property tax from you. Why is it collecting property tax? Because it is the ruler of the land. So government is the governing authority has to stand by and offer mortgage assurance. So in cases where the OC is not coming, who's not giving the support?
Right.
So whichsoever governing authority is not giving the OC, that ought to compensate either the builders or the customer on whatsoever ground. So again, it goes back to the paperwork or the legal framework under which the project had been sanctioned. Who sanctioned it? So that you have to follow the trail. I again want to highlight out one thing, is that even when a residential real estate is sold, the whole marketing trail has to be intact, so that if any kind of issue happens, the accountability can be traced back to the first brochure, the first person who made the call. Everything ought to be documented. Under which circumstances it happened.
How was it marketed? How was it marketed?
How was it marketed? Exactly. How was it marketed?
Right now, actively, the marketing trail is obscure.
Yeah, it's just like selling timeshare holidays.
Right. They actively want you to come off. They don't even want you to be on phone.
Yeah, pay 5 lakhs and enjoy holiday with family for lifetime.
Right.
And then high drama and drinks and parties, and your family is invited, and your kids are given a play area.
Right.
So this is how it's happening.
Right.
Like family time. But then what happens after that?
Right. Right.
So how do you trace back the accountability?
Right. And for example, the way they do things, they market it to you on a Google chat, or please, sir, can you come for video conferencing? Now, one of the things that happens in video conferencing is they don't record, they won't allow you to record, or they try to prevent you from creating a coherent trail.
Or else there is another way of looking at it. It's not getting into the nitty-gritties. You have failed to perform your your delivery, so you compensate or refund or provide an alternate asset. Simple as that.
As simple as that.
Yeah, and that is enforced and documented by the local authority. But as again, the local authority which is sanctioning, the local authority which is collecting property taxes. So that is what matters.
Actually, so who is underwriting the asset? Right now, the flat buyer is underwriting the asset. Just correct me if my language is wrong or the way I'm saying it is wrong, but let me simplify. Suppose there is a loss. Whose loss will it be? And the flat buyer doesn't know it, but the cumulative effect of all the paperwork that he has signed to the bank, to the builder, everything, it says, suppose the building doesn't happen, I will be at loss. And I'm okay with that. I've accepted it. Now, he doesn't say it in as many words anywhere. But the overall effect of what he has written, what he has signed, all those disclaimers, all those waivers, all the agreements, everything, the overall effect is, loss hota hai to mera hai. He's saying it. And bank also is saying in their papers, loss hota hai to tera hai, to the flat buyer. And the builder is also saying, loss hota hai to tera hai.
That is what I highlighted in my last article.
Right.
Is that
so under all circumstances,
the buyers, brokers, builders, and bankers. So how the risk is more maximum tipped towards the buyer.
Loss hota hai to tera hi hai. Now, if the buyer becomes simply aware, that has been the way I attack the problem. The way I see it is, the public does not understand the nature of the transaction, because the transaction is like this elephant. You can't see the whole elephant, you only see the trunk at first, and you'll only see the tail in the end. You can't see the totality of the transaction. And you feel you're being benignly guided by people. Arey sir, aap itne bade log hain, you will guide me through the transaction. Right? Damn right, he is guiding you. He is guiding you through a transaction which he completely understands, which you don't have any understanding of. At the end of it, you are going to realize you're not even going to realize it, that loss hota hai to tera hai. Now, to the common man, it is incomprehensible that nobody is protecting him in this scenario. Not even RERA is protecting him in this scenario. It is incomprehensible, because he says, at least RERA is there to protect me. Or some government agency says, often people say, I paid stamp duty. Registered agreement kiya hai. So they feel, agreement kiya hai, so they are protecting me. No, they are not.
I feel the very authority which is collecting the stamp duty and registration charges, they ought to. Why are they collecting that money? To indemnify, right? Ideally, they should indemnify.
But
yes. No. So that mechanism is absent. There has to be mechanisms where developers funds should get into escrow and remain in that till the last unit is not handed over peacefully. After that, whatever the customer does with his apartment, blows it down or burns it away or whatever, that's his. That the onus is on him. But till the time he doesn't get proper possession, that mechanism of indemnity must exist. Sorry.
So again, similar to this, there is the financial instrument market where you are said read the offer document carefully. You're told.
Let it be. Let the fine print be there. But do you read fine print when you're buying a car? You read the fine print. You look at the brand and you buy. You know that it has a track record. You buy a defective consumer durable. You know that it will be replaced under warranty. There are mechanisms.
Correct.
So that trust has to enter the industry. I'm not talking about disruption. I'm talking about reform.
Yes.
Because disruption is a very, I would say, cunning term used by businesses. As we have seen in the last 6-7 years. Yes. They come in as a disruptor, but then they make it a habit, and
a disruptor is not a good thing. It is not a good thing. I'm not.
Has proven to be a very negative approach.
The very idea of disruption being a good thing. The word disruptive has been branded as something that is good.
Yes, there is a very catchy, catchphrase. It is a very trendy sounding, but then we need reforms and conscience. People with professionals with conscience must come and speak in your forum. They should not look at you as an access. They should look at you as media, the voice of the people in the real estate, residential real estate sector. So you have a new set of audience, intellectual audience, people from the industry who speak and debate.
The Naxal part comes like this. Not necessarily attached to a gun or the way of the gun, But it comes from a concern for the voiceless, basically. Those who are without a voice must be spoken.
Yes, so it's like concern for the nexus.
Concern against the nexus and for the voiceless. Those who are powerless against the nexus. Those who are powerless against the empowered. Those whose, they have been disempowered and rendered voiceless and marginalized.
Yes.
So then who stands there? So symbolically speaking, I don't know how they implemented it, and I am not someone who upholds their method.
Yeah.
But the overall way they approached it was, I stand for the common man. I stand for the lowest of the low, the poorest of the poor, the tribals, And I'm going to look at the world through those goggles. Now, of course, when you look at the world through only one set of goggles, then you don't necessarily talk about justice. You're talking about changing you want this end of the scale to rise. But that's not the intent. The intent is that the disempowered have to be heard, the voiceless have to be heard. And
we are one of them.
Please
understand, every one of us is one of them.
Yeah.
At some point of the other, if not today, tomorrow.
Your wife, your children, your grandchildren, they will grow into the same world. And
just like road safety.
Yeah.
You've never been hit by an automobile or a very rash driver. Tomorrow you could be the victim.
You could be the victim of a rash driver.
Yeah. So let's be concerned about road safety. So let's be concerned about secure transactions in the residential real estate sector in India.
Absolutely.
And we can wrap up on this.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
This debate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Thank you very much.
Thank you.